Hello and welcome to the interview today. Welcome to Results with Kellen. Really excited to have you here today, and I am so excited for the guests that we have. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I'd like to, for those of you that are new, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. You know, I've made a life out of helping people maximize their gifts and talents, helping people do things they didn't believe they could do with tools they didn't know they had, and power they don't know they control. And that's a little phrase I use. It encapsulates what I'm about. And in doing that, it created this impetus to create this telesummit and bring you 50 powerful, incredible speakers that will benefit you, bless your life, and give you the opportunity to grow and develop in incredible ways. So in that regard, and I brought to you another interview today, and I'm really excited to get started today. But in order for you to get the full benefit, I need you to go to the webpage of our guest today. So if you go to www.resultswithkellen.com/magnetic, that's MAGNETIC, then you'll know that you're on the right page when you see the picture of Debra Jason, who's our guest today. So I want to tell you a little bit about Debra, and before I do, there's a couple of things you can do on that page. Of course, there's lots of things to see, but what I want you to do is I want you to scroll down to the bottom, because on that page you'll see a comment section, and during the interview things will occur to you. Comments, thoughts, questions, and you'll want to write them down there, because that'll allow you to keep track of them, allow you to put questions in, and so forth. So if you'd scroll down there and get ready for the question section, that'd be great. The other thing I want to cover before we introduce our guest is that Debra's brought a special gift just for listening to the interview today. It's really exciting, and I'll be telling you more about that later. And Debra will actually describe it for you a little bit later on in the interview. So. And that gift is going to be free, and it's going to be just because you're here today. So that's exciting, and I'm excited about that. Debra Jason is a copywriter. She is an award-winning copywriter that's been at it for 25 years. She has won the Rocky Mountain Direct Marketing Association Creative Person of the Year Award, and she's also a seasoned writer, like I said, with more than 25 years experience in the field of direct marketing. She has personally written thousands and thousands and thousands of words for lots of clients, and around the world, actually, in this country and some overseas. As a professional copywriter, she educates and inspires others who also want to be writing copy and creating words to help with their business. She also educates and inspires coaches, passion-driven coaches, and other business professionals in communicating their marketing message in a powerful way. So I'm really grateful. She does that even with those that may have been struggling about how to get their words on paper and make them effective. Welcome to the show, Debra.
Oh, thanks, Kellen. Such a pleasure to be here and an honor to speak with your people today. And I want to thank them for taking some time out of their busy days to listen in and hear us chat.
Fantastic. So, Debra, you know, the guests don't know you like I do. We've had a chance to talk multiple times and visit, get to know each other quite well. Why don't you tell me, but tell our guests, a bit about your journey. How did you get into copywriting? Where did you start? And talk to me about what's happened along the way.
Well, thank you for asking. The journey started many years ago when I was working at a catalog company. I was actually putting the catalog together from start to finish, doing production. So I worked with graphic designers and with copywriters and with the printing house, and went to trade shows and looked for products. And after a couple of years, I decided I was good at the administrative stuff, but I really wanted to do something creative. So I went to my boss. At that time, this was a job, and I asked my boss, can I start writing? And they said yes. The idea was if I was good at it, if they liked what I did, they would save money. And if they didn't like it, then we could go back to hiring a copywriter. So that's when I first started writing. Then I eventually went to New York. I was offered a job there, and that's where I was born and raised. And since New York is the advertising and marketing capital of the world, I thought, let's go back there, be closer to my family, and check out the Big Apple, since it had been about 12 years since I'd lived there. However, since it had been so long since I lived there, I really missed the sunshine and the blue skies of Colorado. And I returned here. It was about 1988, and Colorado was in a recession. So everywhere I went looking for a job, people were saying to me, Debra, sorry, we're laying people off. We're not hiring anybody. However, if you were to freelance, we could use your services. So I'd always wanted my own business. I never knew what that was going to be, and the light bulb went off in my head, and I decided, okay, I'm going to start my own business as a freelance copywriter, and that was January 1st, 1989. I opened my doors as The Right Direction, and I'm still here today.
Wow, that's quite a journey. 25 years, amazing. It's an astounding feat. You know, the statistics are that some 80% of businesses, you know, go under in the first 5, and then another 80% go under in the next 5. So you are certainly among the elite in having a business operational now for 25 years. That's fantastic, and you're due congratulations for that. You know, it's interesting is your story. You spelled the word J-O-B a bunch of times. And it's funny because among entrepreneurs, of course, J-O-B, right? That's a dirty word. And nobody wants to do that. And so we spell it, J-O-B. And I know that in that story about wanting to open your own business and not knowing what it would be and then picking it and moving ahead, that you must have, like I have, asked the same kinds of questions like, can I really start a business? Can I really have the kind of life that owning my own business would bring? We have this, you know, idea that entrepreneurs have a certain lifestyle, and more or less it's true. But I know that I have felt that question and so forth before when I did have a job, and it's certainly evident that you felt those same kinds of things in your journey that you have completed quite successfully. So
well,
let's.
You know, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, one thing I was going to say, you know, in that journey, and I think it's important for people to know this, especially when they want to do their own business, is I certainly, in the very beginning, you mentioned, you know, 5 years is like the stepping stone. When I started, everyone was saying to me, you've got to make it through the first 3 years. And so I had that as a goal in my head. And I had days, plenty of days, where I'd make phone calls and people would say, no thanks, we don't need your services. And I'd be in tears. And I'd sit down and go, what am I doing? I must be crazy to think I could do this and have my own business. This isn't going to work. So I definitely had those moments of doubt and lack of self-confidence. And I managed to just keep plugging along. And I did it actually because I had a lot of support from friends, and I also had 2 awesome mentors who kept reminding me of my brilliance. They believed in me, so they lit a fire under me to make sure I kept believing in myself.
So you've mentioned a couple of really important things. Let's talk about this for a minute, because sometimes people think that you either need to be born with a golden spoon, or you have to have, quote, the right breaks, or it just has to work out for you, you know, that kind of thing, and that somebody has some secret formula or special, you know, opportunity that nobody else knows, right? And sometimes even they sell that. I mean, you see that kind of writing online that says the secret formula that, you know, either some ancient society had, or that the current successful people have some secret formula that nobody else has. And it sounds to me like a bit of determination, some good mentors, and persistence was kind of the road that you've described.
Absolutely. You know, 2 things I tell people that they need when they're doing their own business is to be consistent and persistent. And it doesn't mean that you don't have days that don't go well, but it means that you just keep going, because giving up is not an option. You know, and you sometimes, like every once in a while, I even took a part-time job. And at first I'd be embarrassed, because I thought, you know, what if clients walk into the store and see me working at Christmas? And then I went, you know what? I'm not doing this because I'm giving up on my job. I'm doing this to help support me so that I can keep my business going. And like I said, I made it through the first 3 years. And of course, then everyone said, well, you got to make it through 5 years. So that became the next stepping stone. And as you know, and as you have mentioned, it's now 25 years. So I think I'm over the hump.
You know what? If you're not over the hump, we're all dead. So it's a couple of really good things. And I'm going to talk about this for just a minute because it is so universal among all phases of self-development, whether it's starting business or any other kind of piece. There's any other kind of development, you know, health or whatever. Some of our other guests have talked about. There are going to be days, no matter what your goal is, where it stinks and it's not fun and you want to give up and you think you're in the wrong place, business, wrong goal, whatever. And what you've said about, you know, being consistent and being persistent, in your case it would be continuing to look for writing jobs. And I love the fact that you mentioned that there was a time or times when you had to take a part-time job to keep the dream alive, and the fact that it felt embarrassing, and all of the things that we all resonate with and feel like someone's going to say, see, you couldn't do it, or whatever, if they see you working there. And so I love it. A great description and a great discussion of the kind of work that it takes to get a business started. And I'm going to extend it to any personal development effort because all of those same characteristics are going to be the same. Way cool. Thanks for that story. So let me ask a question now. Let's move over to your expertise, which is copywriting. So you're in the catalog business, if I remember the story right, and you decided that you wanted to try the copywriting. Yes, it was going to save money, but you know, wanting to do the copywriting to save them money obviously wasn't probably your primary motivation. Somehow you wanted it. What made you feel like, you know, artistry with words or copywriting in terms of, you know, describing, or what made you feel like that was what you wanted to do?
Well, there's probably a couple of things. One is when I started out actually in college, I was a fine arts major. And I didn't stick with it because what I discovered was I loved art, but I really wasn't an artist. I couldn't draw the human form. I usually did abstract art. I always got an A in high school for effort, not because I was the best artist. So there was a creative part of me. As a child, I loved to do acting and singing, so creativity was really important to me. So when I looked at what I was doing at the catalog company, I wasn't going to be a graphic designer, so writing was the next thing. And as a teenager probably, I did a lot of poetry writing. That was about the extent of my writing career. I did not go to college and study writing. I did study communications, but it was communication disorders. I have a master's, and I was a speech pathologist for several years. So that was the calling for me, was to do something creative at that company, and that seemed like where my calling was with words.
You know, again, you've given us some real gems in the process of telling a story, because you studied something else in college, you worked at it for a while, you knew you had the creative bug, and from your own experience had a, you know, an idea of what it wasn't, drawing and so forth, but you were true to that feeling of creativity. And I like that, because there's so many people who give in to the feeling of I can't something, and then they sort of live in that mantra of I can't, and so they end up unhappy and satisfied with less than they could possibly do, less than they want to do, and they don't do the kind of exploration that you did with creativity and marrying the desire to be creative with what you were already doing, which was writing. So I think that's really cool. Again, a couple of gems there to write down if you're listening to this interview. So let me ask another question that's kind of related, and that is, what is there about copywriting? I know that you said it's a creative outlet, and maybe that's the full answer, but I think there's probably more. What is there about copywriting that satisfies you emotionally, that fills that creative need? What happens when you craft a beautiful masterpiece of words that fills that creative need?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that when I'm working with a client, I spend a lot of time with them talking about what it is that they're marketing and who it is they're talking to and how they help people. So then I get to help them in communicating that message. And not only that, but every project that I work on is different. So today I might be working with somebody who's a coach, and let's say, a transformational business coach. Tomorrow I might be working with somebody that does energy healing. The next day I might be working with a small business that is high-tech related. So everything I do is different. So it's creative in terms of the words that I come up with, but it's creative because every project is a new challenge.
So that's really good. A couple of avenues there. One, you get to express the creativity. I heard the way you described getting to know your client was really exciting too. It also, you lit up, and you looked like that was a lot of fun, getting to know the ins and outs of their message and the ins and outs of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to help people. And you mentioned helping people. So I suspect just based on your the emotion that you displayed there, that's a lot of fun for you too, to get into that as well. And then on top of that, the fantastic fulfillment of having everything be different, so it's all a new challenge, and each project seems to some degree fresh and new. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and I'm a people person, so when I have new clients, it's an opportunity to have a new connection. And also when you're writing copy is about piquing people's curiosity and touching on their emotions. So it really is important for me to pull that out of my clients if they're not already in touch with how they're touching on their clients and their prospects' emotion. Then I need to sort of dig that out from them so that we can convey that in their message.
Excellent. Piquing curiosity and touching emotion. I'm sure we'll talk some more about that in a minute. So let me ask you, with the kind of career you have and the kind of awards that you've won and things like that, can you give me some really memorable, 2 or 3 memorable examples of successes that you have where you actually wrote, this is copy that you've written. I'll talk about your clients that you've taught, and maybe in a subsequent question, but just copy that you've written that's been particularly memorable, maybe because it was either really hard or because it was wildly successful or both. Give me some of your memorable, fun memories on stuff you wrote.
Well, 2 actually that are really fulfilling most recently. One is a client who is in France, and she's a coach, and the other one is a client who is in California, and she's also a coach, but they're different types of coaches. One works with people on their image and their style. The other one works with fitness and health and wellness. And both of those women had written content already, and they came to me and they said, it's just not resonating with my prospects, and it just doesn't pack the punch, and I'm not getting the results I want. So with the person who was in France and the one in California, when I reworked the copy, both of them said something that was very similar, and it was very fulfilling for me because what they said was they felt like the transformation of the words that I took from what they had written and put into something new now sounded like something that would resonate with their clients, and that their clients would get them on a personal level. And the beautiful thing about that is they both then felt more confident about what they were doing because they finally felt like their message was resonating with the right people. So that's really rewarding for me to have my clients come back to me and say, wow, Debra, now I even feel better about myself because I feel like my message is really shining through better than it was before.
So that's a couple of layers there. I want to talk about each one for just a minute. The first layer was they'd already written some stuff, so they didn't come to you without help or without having done some copy. I'm sure that you work with those that haven't, but these particular ones had done some, and you were able to transform their words in such a way that 2 things happened. One, it sounds like they felt like it was resonating better with their clients, and as a result of that, number 2, they were more confident in their message and skills. Is that what I heard you say?
Absolutely, and that to me was really touching for me, to feel like, I did more than just write copy for them. I helped them with their mindset.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, do you have maybe one other story that is, since both of those guys came, and many of our listeners may not yet have stuff that they've written, do you work with and maybe have a story about someone that you have helped write copy for, who you had to do that digging you talked about earlier, where you have to dig out their, what they're really about and everything else to kind of start from scratch to help with your copy?
One that comes to mind is it was a golf society, and I'm not a golfer. So for me, in order to be able to write content about something that I don't do or know very well, I really have to spend some time getting to know that product and that industry, and as well the clientele and what's important to them. So this was a golf association, and they were putting out a limited edition, I think it was a driver, for those of you who are golfers. And so I had to learn everything, and they had nothing written, so I had to write from scratch. And the beautiful part is we put out the piece. It was a direct mail package. So there was a letter, and there was a brochure, and an order form, and a reply, and they sold out of their limited edition golf clubs.
So wow, that's another big home run for you, writing, especially in an area you're not familiar with. Now, driver, that's that one with the big head, right? It used to be that when I was a kid, my dad took me golfing, and the driver was like this big. Now they're like, watermelons on the end of a stick, right? They get enormous drivers. I'm not sure if there's a limit in the golfing rules about how big they get. One of these days, I expect to go into a golf store and see them like this, right? Well, that's fantastic.
All I know is like 4.
Right. Four, and if you hit it really bad, is it 8? I don't know, but anyway, okay.
Or hole in one.
Yeah, hole in one. That's the dream of every golfer. Well, that's fantastic. Sold them out of their limited edition. What a wonderful couple of examples, and from working both with people that have nothing and with people that have already been in business and have got a writing, and you managed to go in and get it tuned up like you did. So let me ask a couple of other things. One of the things that I do, and that I have been guilty of certainly, and perhaps listeners as well, and maybe you too, is when we're trying to learn to do something. It doesn't matter what it is. We're trying to improve ourselves in some way. It might be health. It might be learning to write copy. It might be starting a business. We desperately want someone to hand us a formula or a book that says, if you do A, B, C, and you do this exactly, I guarantee you that you will, whatever, some outrageous guarantee. In other words, we want some magic bullet. No blenders intended here, but we want some magic bullet that we know will solve the problem. Now, in learning to write, you mentioned mentors and you mentioned a process. When was it that you discovered that there wasn't really a magic bullet, that this was going to be a do-it-yourself project?
Well, it's funny you use magic bullet, because one of my presentations I say there is a magic bullet for communicating your message, and that magic bullet is the copy. But in order to write good copy, there are formulas, there are guidelines you can follow, but one of the things that my mentors actually taught me is that oftentimes those guidelines sometimes work better when you break the rules. And an answer to part of your question is, to become a better copywriter, you need to keep writing. And so when I teach my program, I tell people, the best way to get better at writing is to write and to keep writing. And if you have writer's block, sit down with a pen and paper, not at the computer, but with a pen and paper, and just do stream of consciousness. So yes, there are formulas.
I have a question real quick about that.
Sure.
What is it about pen and paper? Because I have experienced the same thing. What is it about pen and paper that makes that more effective than doing it at the computer? Do you know?
I think there are studies that can explain it in a detailed manner, but I think it's more just a kinesthetic thing. It's not to sound woo-woo or anything, but I think it really has to do with psychology and what they call emotional psychology. And when it comes, I, for example, find that lots of times it comes through my hands. I don't know any other way to explain it. It's not like I sit down and think, I am going to write this. I just sit down and write, and it comes. So, like I said, I think it's just sort of a more kinesthetic thing that sparks different neurons, perhaps, when you're sitting down with a pen and paper than when you're sitting down in front of a computer on a keyboard. Plus, when you're with a pen and paper, you can take yourself into a different environment that might be a little bit more inspirational than sitting in front of a computer monitor.
So there's a couple of things there, and I asked that question on purpose because we live kind of now in a download and double-click world, where we want everything to be something we can just download, double-click, and boom, there's the answer. And I love the fact that what you're saying is it's like one of the things I teach is meditation. Some of those things just take some time. They take some doing. There's an experiential aspect to it. And I love the fact that what you're saying sounds like that. I got to take a pencil or pen in my hand, and I got to make those motions and write. And if I'm stuck and if I'm blocked, I just have to start writing. And if I want to be a writer, guess what? I have to write. And I have to keep practicing. And it is so obvious, yet so often ignored, the simplest kind of counsel.
And I just thought of the phrase that I was trying to think of a moment ago. It's not emotional psychology, it's called energy psychology. And it just has to do with the energy that comes through your body. An interesting exercise people might want to try is, I don't know if you've ever done this, writing with your left hand and your right hand. So you write out a question with your left hand using one color, and then without thinking, just stream of consciousness, you answer the question with your right hand. I've done it in workshops where we're trying to tap into our inner child, and so the left hand, let's see, the right hand would be the adult part of you asking the question, the left hand would be your inner child, and that's if you're a righty, you do the reverse. So if you're a lefty, the adult part of you writes the question, and the right hand, as the child part of you, responds. So
well, I'm glad that
exercise.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's an interesting exercise to do because you really just have to let yourself do it without thinking.
Yeah, so it would have to be the inner. I'm a righty, okay, and my inner child would have to be the left hand because I'm not even sure I can write legibly. I'm not even sure I can write something with my left hand. Anybody could read.
It's an interesting exercise to do, and then see if you can read what you wrote with your opposite hand.
Yeah, that would be tough for me. I think I've actually tried that a few times, and it takes a lot of concentration. It's not my inner child wouldn't have the patience for the concentration it takes to write legibly with my left hand, that's for sure. So thank you. That's a couple of really interesting points, and particularly about just the flow and the without thinking and just sort of the writing stream of consciousness. And that presupposes no judgment and no filtering. You just sort of do stuff, and that's sometimes the way to get stuff out, it sounds like.
Yes.
So I'm going to switch gears completely. We mentioned and kind of glossed over your long and illustrious career of 25 years, but we also mentioned that you've had the opportunity to win some awards and be recognized for your creativity and your writing and some of the other things that you've done and contributions that you've made. Could you tell me a little bit about those awards and what was involved there?
Well, various things. The one that you mentioned was the Creative Person of the Year Award. And that was, I had spent many years actually involved in the Rocky Mountain Direct Marketing Association because having been in the catalog business and being a direct response copywriter, that was one of the best places for me to network. So it was really an honor when they gave me that award. Another one that I was pretty proud of was from the Boulder Chamber of Commerce called the Small Business of the Year Award. And they had certain categories, and my category was the Lone Eagle. So as you might guess, that was for being a solopreneur, a single-person business. And there's some others. I was a Volunteer of the Year Award. I got a Citation of Recognition Award from the City of Boulder when I first started my business. So that was really cool because somebody else had nominated me and I had no idea. So it's always nice to get that recognition, to have those awards and know that people are, I guess you could say, recognizing what you're doing and are aware of it and are appreciating you. But the bottom line for me is it's nice to have the awards, but I don't think that's really why my clients hire me. They hire me because I understand what their message is and I can help them when they're struggling to get their ideas on paper and they just can't do it. I can glean from what they're telling me and turn it into a message that works for them. So that's, to me, the more important part, rather than saying, you know, I've won this award and that award. I love getting the awards. I love the recognition, but I really don't think that's what makes somebody say, okay, I want to hire you. It helps
nobody's
with
come in
building
your
credibility.
office. Yeah, nobody's come in your office and said, let me see your list of awards.
No, and I have some of them that are actually physical awards that might be on my shelf, but you know, nobody calls and says, before we go any further, I want to know how many awards you've won.
Well, good. I really like that. So that's something that resonates strongly with me. Is you're talking about results. You're saying the thing that means something to you is the results that your clients get with the copy that you've written. So when for example, those two coaches you mentioned, you know, the copy then resonated more with their clients, and they were more transparent and available emotionally to their clients because of what you'd written. And the awards are just simply a recognition of the excellence, and it's fun to get them, but hey, at the end of the day, people want the results, and that's what you're about.
Yeah, I want to bring value to my clients, you know, and I think that's what most of us who are in business want to do. We want to help people. So that's what's really important to me.
That's great. Thank you. You know, for those of you who may have joined late, I'm going to repeat a couple things that I said earlier. If you're not already on Debra's dashboard page, you need to go there now. And how you get there is in the address box of your browser. I'd like you to type this address, www.resultswithkellen.com/magnetic, MAGNETIC. You'll know you're on the right page when you see the words Audience Dashboard and you see the photo of our guest, Debra Jason. Friends, as I mentioned at the beginning, Debra has a free gift for you just for being here today as a thank you for listening to this interview. Debra, your free thank you gift is called Do Your Headlines and Calls to Action, Do Your Headlines and Calls to Action Go Ka-ching? In a few sentences, can you describe for the listeners what they're going to get in your free gift, Do Your Headlines and Calls to Actions Go Ka-ching?
In that report actually came as the result of a presentation I did at something called the Direct Marketing Day at Your Desk. It was a virtual conference. And in that report, you'll get about a dozen tips for writing rock-solid headlines that attract people's attention, grab them, because as most of you probably know, you only have a few seconds to do that, and your headline has to capture attention and get people to read the next line. So that report covers that. It also talks about essential things that you should have in your call to action. And also, I've added in that report, it wasn't there earlier, 5 fill-in-the-blank headline templates. Everyone who's on the call should know that this report is actually part of the Magnetic Copywriting program. So you get a little bit of a taste of what's in the program. In the program, you get more fill-in-the-blank templates, but this report will at least give you a sample of that, and you can fill in the blanks on those templates and fire away.
Well, thank you very much. That sounds like a very both practical and generous free gift for our listeners. Especially the headlines. I mean, those are sometimes so hard to craft, and yeah, we only have a few seconds to grab attention. So that sounds like a great thing. Friends, I'm going to tell you in a few minutes just how to get that free gift. But while you're on this page, I want you to find the special offer button. It's big, it's orange, and it's easy to find. I want you to click on that special offer button now, and you'll know you're on the right page when you see the words Debra Jason's Magnetic Copywriting. On this page, you'll get to read all about this exclusive special offer that Debra's put together for you just for listening to this interview today. Debra, your package is called Debra Jason's Magnetic Copywriting. Could you take a minute here and describe, tell us a bit about this special offer and that you and your team have put together for our listeners?
Sure. It's Magnetic Copywriting, 21 Days to Creating Killer Content That Converts. And my purpose when I put together this home study was to make it quick and easy and fun. So there are recordings. There are 3 recordings. You can listen to 1 a week for 3 weeks. Or if you're really motivated, you can listen to all 3 in 1 day or in 1 week. And along with each recording, there's an action guide. And then there are several templates. As I mentioned earlier with the free report, there are even more templates in the home study program for writing headlines. There's a template for writing a sales page. There's a template for, let's see if I can, for requesting testimonials, because it's really important that you have social proof. There's also what I call a strategy questionnaire that helps you gain clarity about who your market is and what your product is. So there are quite a few documents in there that are helpful to you. There are what I call how-to reports. And the how-to reports pretty much reiterate all the information that are in the recordings so that you can have it either audio in the recordings or printed in front of you and take your little highlighter and mark the pages all up, which is something that I like to do if you want to have that kinesthetic, attachment to it. It helps some people process. So that's what's in the program, and it's fairly comprehensive, and then, like I said, it's quick and easy so that you can start practicing and writing and writing and writing some more.
Well, that's fantastic. It also seems like there is an additional, something I noticed on that page is something about a critique as well.
I forgot about that, yes, because one thing I'm offering to people who are listening to Results with Kellen that's not available in the current home study program is a copywriting critique. So if you have a brochure or a sales letter or up to 3 pages of your website that you want me to take a look at, I will do that, and then I will submit a written report to you with my recommendations of how to improve your copy so that you can hone your skills and go back and boost what you've been doing to another level. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the spectacular things that I saw in this amazing offer that you and your team have put together. Friends, if you want to take Debra up on this special offer at this exclusive 90% discount, including stuff that's not available elsewhere besides those that are listening to Results with Kellen, scroll up to the top of the screen. Click on the Add to Cart button, and the rest is easy. Just fill out the form and click on the Submit Offer button. And remember, in a moment, I'll be telling you how to get that free gift that Debra's offering just for listening to the interview. Debra, let's go back to some questions. So I know that after all of this experience that you have, it isn't a random process when you attack a new project. So I'm sure that you have some rituals and things that you've refined over time, and they may be slightly different. But when you get an assignment, what is your ritual?
What's my ritual? Well, as I mentioned, part of what's in the home study program is something called a strategy questionnaire, and that's part of my ritual. It goes through, one, what is your product? You know, what is it that you're offering? It could be a product, it could be a program, it could be a service, but I go into depth with my clients about what is it and what are the problems that it solves, what are the benefits related to that product. The other thing is your market. There's 2 mistakes. One of the presentations I give is called 5 copywriting mistakes and how to avoid them, and 2 of the mistakes are not knowing your product well enough or your market well enough. So it's really important that you dig deep. Imagine that your prospective client is sitting across the table from you, and you're having a conversation with them. What's their problem? What challenges are they facing? What keeps them up at night? So, you know, you were talking earlier about a formula, and there's a 5-step formula that we go through that I call pushing your prospects' buttons. And the first step of that formula is to determine the problem. So what is keeping your client up at night or your prospects awake at night? Is there something that's stressing them out, that's overwhelming them, you know, that they're afraid of? Then the next step is to push their buttons. So that is asking them questions that make them think, you know, yeah, this person understands me because they're asking questions that are pushing my buttons. And the third step is closely related. It's called creating the aha moment. So while somebody is reading your message, they're saying, yes, that's me. Yes, Kellen really understands who I am, what I'm struggling with, and I need to push the buy now button, or I need to pick up the phone and call Kellen, or I need to email him. Then the fourth step is to offer a solution. So this person is across the table from you and telling you all their troubles, and guess what? You're the person who can help them because you have a solution, and so you offer that solution. And of course, I'm guessing you probably know the fifth step, but I will remind you that it's getting people to respond and giving them that call to action. So that's the 5-step push your button prospecting formula for writing copy. And so those are some of the steps that I go through, or the ritual as you call it.
Well, that's fantastic. So you mentioned this earlier, and I want to talk a little bit more about it, because more so than maybe any other creative area, the famous writer's block. You know, no one says composer's block. I mean, I'm a recording artist and I write music all the time, and I have the same kinds of feeling, but I've never heard anybody talk about composer's block. But we do hear the word writer's block. So you talked a little bit about that earlier. When you feel blocked, and I want you to assure the audience that you do, because everyone does, but anyway, what do you do?
What do I do? Well, first I sort of bang my head against the wall and go, why can't I come up with anything? And, you know, I'll review my notes, and if it's still happening, I just have to say, you know what, take a break. Walk away from it. You know, currently I'm working on writing a book. The book is called Millionaire Marketing on a Shoestring Budget. And when I started, I came out of the gate, I was going gung-ho and wrote probably more than half of the book. And one day I sat down to start working on it, and I hit a brick wall. You know, I looked at my outline and said, okay, I'll work on that chapter. And I looked at it and went, it's not coming to me. All right, try another chapter. Well, it's not coming to me either. And I'm fortunate that I have a colleague and a coach who said, you know what, take a break. Because even though I advise my clients to do that, sometimes I don't always practice what I preach. You know, I sit there and keep going, I got to come up with something. But it's really not a bad idea. It's actually a good idea to just take a break. You know, if you're in a place where you can get outside and take a walk, go take a walk. I lived on the island of Kauai for 10 years. I'm very fortunate. And many times I would have to just leave the computer, go across the street, walk on the beach, listen to the ocean. And lots of times inspiration would come from that. Other times it would just be a way to relax and let go. And believe me, letting go is not easy for me. So I just strongly encourage people, when you hit that block, give yourself permission to say, you know what, I have to walk away. I need to take a break, and I'll come back to this later when I'm refreshed and renewed. Because if you sit there and you keep trying and you keep trying, you just get frustrated. So do something else, listen to music, take a walk. If you have a dog, go throw the ball with the dog. Just do something. Do a happy dance for 5 minutes, you know, shake up your energy and move. Whatever you can that just sort of releases some of that stress of not finding the right words.
I'm sure that I know that and I'm sure that half the audience immediately said, oh, gee, if I could go walk on the beach in Kauai, I could probably get rid of my writer's block too. So good for you. That was fun. But the advice to take a break is fantastic, and refocus your mind. So, you know, you've been at this writing game for a long time, but now you've written this course and you're teaching and doing things besides just copywriting itself. So you've now engaged in teaching others to do the same thing. And some people teach, and some people do whatever they do well, and some people teach, and some people do both. So you've elected to teach as well. Why did you decide to go into teaching besides just writing yourself?
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, for 25 years, I've always done teaching and speaking. You know, there's that saying, I forget exactly how it goes, but, you know, those who can't do, teach. Well, I can do, and now that it's been 25 years, I feel like, you know, it's time for me to share that even more, to share with other people so that they can do. And I'm shifting gears a little bit and getting out from behind the computer. So I'm a people person, and I'm a connector. So I want to speak and inspire and educate other people to not just do what I do. You know, I speak not just about copywriting, but I speak about the art of engaging and building relationships and the value that has in helping you with your marketing, whether it's social media marketing, whether it's networking, whether it's speaking in public. There are many ways to get your message out there, It's not just always about being on the computer. So teaching for me is just a natural because I love the face-to-face. I love looking people in the eye. I love getting questions and sharing what I have with other people. So it's just a natural for me. I think at some point I might have told you about when I was a kid, I did acting. And I wanted to go to the High School of Performing Arts. And I didn't get accepted. So I actually tucked that dream away. And now here I am as an adult, and I sort of get to live out that dream by public speaking and by doing trainings and educating other people because I'm up in front of the room. I don't have an Oscar or award-winning performance, but I do get a lot of positive feedback, and that's very rewarding.
Well, that's fantastic, and I love the fact that, you know, you've taught and spoken all the way along, but you said you're shifting gears more to teach. You're like, you know, the expert that has now become, you know, the expert or the guru in a certain area in your own work, and now you're out teaching and helping others to create that same success. And as you described the creativity part, I remembered something that I don't remember if you or I said it earlier, but about creating artistry with words, and I thought I saw that whole creativity, and when you described it, you did tell me in one of our other conversations, not today, but in one of our other conversations about wanting to go to that high school, not being accepted, but and you know, having been, okay, fine, I'll find another way to get my creative outlet out. That's fantastic, as opposed to, you know, pouting or, you know, feeling like you were defeated somehow. Is teaching a lot different? I mean, how is teaching different than actually doing the work yourself? When you've got to, I guess what I'm getting at is, when you do the work yourself, you're responsible for your own result and you can go get it done. When you're teaching and mentoring other people, you're kind of also dependent on them, like, you know, doing the homework. And so I'm just wondering how different that is with you with respect to, you know, fulfillment and getting people to take the action you need them to take.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, you know, you're responsible for your own results, because one of the things that I teach is just that. I can guide you, you know, I can give you formulas, as we were talking about earlier, and give you steps, you know, and tips and strategies, but you have to be responsible for your own results. So, for example, if you want to be a writer and you don't practice writing, and then you come back to me and say, well, you know, it hasn't worked, and I say, well, what have you done? And you say, nothing, you know, I listened to your recordings. Okay, did you fill in the templates, you know, for the headlines? Well, no, I haven't done that. You know, did you, there's a formula I provide in one of the documents in the course, you know, where people have to fill in blanks, and I go, well, did you do that? I call it the 30-second spiel. No, well, I haven't done that. So if you're going to participate in a program, then really participate, you know, and be responsible for your results, because nobody else can do it for you.
You know, that's fantastic. One of the things I do, you know, that I'm a coach, I'm a high performance and breakthrough kind of coach, and in my career I've spent a lot of time in multiple countries and multiple businesses getting people to do amazing things, and at the end of the day it comes down to what you just said. Nobody can do your push-ups for you. I think it's a Jim Rohn quote, but nobody can do your writing for you, nobody can do your push-ups for you, nobody can actually turn you into the star whatever, and at the end of the day we are responsible for our own excellence, or lack of it, I guess. But hopefully with all of this good stuff we're helping motivate people to excellence. So friends, by now you should have been to the special offer page. If you haven't been there, the link is as follows: www.resultswithkellen.com/magnetic, MAGNETIC. On that page, look for that big orange special offer button and click on that special offer button now. On this page, you can read all about this exclusive offer that Debra's offering just for listening to this interview today, and particularly the thing that was impressive to me is the review. Someone offering an individual review of something that you're doing is quite an extraordinary opportunity, and an opportunity that really shouldn't be missed. So go ahead and take a look at all of the things that are in that special offer, and then take advantage of Debra Jason's magnetic copywriting package at this exclusive 90+% discount. Click on the Add to Cart button now. The rest is easy. Just fill in the form and click the Submit Order button. That's fantastic. So, Debra, I've got a few more questions for this last part of the interview, and that is, what do you say to someone who says to you, can I really do this?
Well, what I say is you don't know until you try. I mean, I don't know if you can do it or not, but if it's something that you want to do, if it's something you feel passionate about, then give it a whirl. When I started writing, as we talked about earlier, I didn't have any training. I didn't go to college for it. Once I did start writing, I did take a class. When I was back there living in New York, it was a direct response copywriting program, and that's where I met my first mentor. And it was because of him and his belief in me and his encouragement that I kept going, that I kept pursuing that writing career. And so if you ask me, can I write? I say you can if you have the passion for it. But are you good at it? I don't know until you start going and giving it a try and see what comes up for you. You know, you might find that maybe it's not really your passion, or you might find that it really comes naturally to you and that you want to keep going. And so I say go for it. If it's something that really is deep within your heart and you want to be creative in that way, then give it a whirl.
So you mentioned a couple things that are really interesting, because both in my coaching practice and I'm sure in yours, people ask that kind of a question, but what they're really asking is that whole self-doubt question. And you mentioned two things that are the keys. One is start and try and you know, work at it and see. And then the second thing you said was, actually you said three things. One, start and try. Two, even though you hadn't studied in college, you decided to get some help doing it, so you took a course. And the third thing you mentioned was a mentor. So start, you know, get some information or education about it, and like you've offered here. And then the third is, you know, get some kind of a mentor and help, because that offers a couple things, an objective eye and then also encouragement when we need it. That's fantastic. So now that you've been teaching for a while, I know you talked about some powerful copywriting that you have done, and for the golf company and for those coaches. I was wondering if you had a couple of examples of people that you have mentored, copywriting people that you have taught and that have had some success or have come back to you and said, I can write, you know, after you've taught them, you know, to do that. Do you have a couple of people that have come to mind?
Well, one person that comes to mind is also a coach, and she's here in Colorado, and we were doing a live training. The program, the Magnetic Copywriting program, started out as a live training, and she got on the call one day, and we were talking about the headline templates, and she had started to fill them out, but along the way, she started having other creative juices started flowing, and she came up with other ideas. And she got on the call and said, she first kind of apologized. She's like, you know, I did the homework, I filled out the templates, but then these other ideas came. And I said, absolutely no reason to apologize, because her other ideas were excellent, and they really suited her and her service and her market. So she was thrilled to go, oh, that's great. So, you know, just because you get templates doesn't mean you have to stick to that. You can find that other ideas start to come up. So that was a really nice feeling for me, to feel like here's a student who was sort of taking off and coming up with her own initiative and her own creative juices. And I have had feedback like that from other people that were in the course with a different exercise that we do, where they really have to focus in on, you know, who are they helping and how do they help them. So that's really a rewarding part when you're teaching, is to have your students go, oh, okay, I get it. You know, now I see. So maybe I shouldn't put it this way. I should say it that way. And sometimes it might just be one little word that makes a big impact. So yes, when students are in my program and they have sort of those aha moments, it's really a fabulous thing.
That's fantastic. So, yeah, it sounds like, yes, they've come up and said, I can write. You know, you've mentioned three parts that are just so important. One is the headline, which is, of course, the grabber, and then you talked about being really clear about who you serve and thinking about that as you write, and then exactly what you do for them. It probably never ceases to amaze you as a professional writer. It certainly doesn't me, the amount of unclear copy that you see where you get all done reading it and you're not sure who they're aiming at or what they do for you, and it must be really frustrating, right, for you to see all that.
Well, you know, one of my very first clients, when I sat down with him and started asking him questions, and actually, if you are working with a writer, be grateful if they ask you questions. But in this case, the gentleman said, Deborah, if I could answer those questions, I wouldn't need you to write this for me. And my response is, you know, I'm not a mind reader. And please keep that in mind. Copywriters are not mind readers. And for us to do our best job, we ask questions. And it's not for us to guess the answers. It's really in your benefit to provide the answers. And then we can probe and really get to that part that is like the pearl, the, you know, the aha that you go, ah, that's what we should focus on in the content. So, yeah, it just, you know, just doesn't come automatically. It requires a lot of answers to questions. And like I said, be grateful when people are asking you those questions, because it will help you get the message out in a way that's powerful and that resonates with the people who are reading it.
You know, one of the things that's fantastic, and I love it, because those deep questions are what makes a person, you know, introspectively cough up the info that you need to write good copy for them, and teaching your students to ask those questions is really powerful as well. One of the things that I know is that I talk about in coaching is, you know, with the proliferation of the internet and the ability to almost, you know, do your work from anywhere. I noticed that you've been in Colorado, you went to New York, you went to Colorado, and to Hawaii, and now you're back, I know, in Boulder. If I were a copywriter, I'm not, but if I were, or you, couldn't you do your work from anywhere? If someone decided to take up copywriting, is that something they could perhaps do, like have that mobile anywhere lifestyle?
Yeah, well, that's what allowed me to go live on Kauai for 10 years. It's interesting because when I went and the opportunity came up, my first response was, I can't go live in Hawaii, you know, and everyone gratefully, those people who know me well said, why can't you? You have your own business, you're a writer, you have a computer, why can't you go? So I went. And, you know, one of the challenges, I will say it wasn't without challenges, because in Kauai, there's a big time difference. So if I had a client who's in New York, depending on the time of year, the clocks don't change in Kauai. So it could be 5 to 6 hours difference. So you really have to plan accordingly. You know, from Kauai to California would be 2 to 3 hours difference. From Kauai to Colorado would be 3 to 4 hours difference. So you just have to learn how to adjust, you know, just as you and I did in scheduling this call today. I'm in Colorado, you're in Canada, so you just have to make sure that you're aware of your timing, and when you're creating deadlines, you know, well, if my client's going to be gone at 5 p.m. his time, you know, well, that means for me it could be 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. depending on the difference. But yes, if you want to be a copywriter, you pretty much just need your computer. Now, there are times, for example, I did have 1 or 2 clients. When I first went to Kauai, I was going back and forth a lot, and they were fine with that. But when I moved there, they were of the mindset they wanted me to be back in Colorado, because just in case they wanted me to meet with them, they wanted me to be available on that level. So in that sense, you know, there were some cases where people said, now you're too far away. But for the most part, most of my clients were always somewhere around the country or the globe. So if you want to travel and take your business with you, as a copywriter, you can do that.
Well, that's fantastic. So I know that's a question that I've gotten about copywriting and other careers as well, but this one seems particularly suited for it. And I can certainly understand the high touch that some people might want. But hey, at the end of the day, especially with things like this Hangout and our ability to do visual conferencing and everything else, at the drop of a hat, why that seems ideally suited to that. So, you know, now it's time to talk about this free thank you gift. So let's talk about that. This is how you get your free thank you gift. You need to be on the audience dashboard webpage. If you haven't seen this page, it's www.resultswithkellen.com/magnetic. To get to the thank you gift, click on the special offer button. That will get you to the special offer page. And scroll all the way down and look for the box with the red dotted lines. And the heading on that box will be Debra Jason's thank you gift. And fill in your name and your email address and click on the send button. And within minutes, we'll automatically send you your free thank you gift for being on this interview today. For those of you that joined the interview late, a couple of housekeeping. If you missed some of what we spoke about, don't worry. We'll be posting the replay in a few minutes, and we'll leave it up for 72 hours. If you want to share this free 72-hour replay with a friend, please send them to www.resultswithkellen.com. Also, if you haven't already done it, now is the time to take advantage of Debra Jason's magnetic copywriting package at this exclusive discount, because you really need to do this. Take advantage of this now while you can. Click on the Add to Cart button, and the rest is easy. Just fill in the form and click the Submit Order button. Friends, thank you for listening to this interview, and Debra, thank you for sharing your insight with us today and your powerful examples.
Oh, thank you, Kellen. It's been an honor to be here, and I, again, appreciate everyone taking the time to listen in. Thank you so much for the invitation to speak.
You betcha. And friends, bye for now.